You're listening to Maritime Noon on CBC Radio 1 at 96.1 FM in Mount Stewart, Prince Edward Island.
And we're coming up to 20 minutes after 12 o'clock. So these are difficult days for people in the Maritimes as the wildfires continue to burn. And to make matters worse, the weather conditions aren't favorable. More than 16,000 people had to flee their homes because of the fire in the Tantallon area, and it's believed about 200 houses have either been destroyed or damaged. Meanwhile, the region's largest wildfire is burning in the Shelburne area. It's about 10,000 hectares in size. About 1,500 people have been forced from their homes there. And as you just heard, in the St. Andrews area of New Brunswick, people were also driven from their homes because of a wildfire. Well, after residents reach safety in events such as these, the focus often turns to questions about insurance, and we hope to answer some of them today. Others may be wondering what they can do to reduce the chances of wildfires damaging or destroying their houses. We have a couple of guests on hand to help us today, so call now. Our number is 1-800-565-1940. Our email is marnoon@cbc.ca. We're also reachable on social media. Just look for CBC Maritime Noon. Glenn McGillivray is the Managing Director with the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction. He has expertise in the things we can do to help wildproof our homes, or wildfire-proof our homes, as much as possible, that is. Thanks for joining us, Glenn.
Thank you.
And we're also joined by Gloria Haydock, who is with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. She is the manager of Consumer and Industry Relations for the Atlantic region. Gloria is joining us on the phone from the Canada Game Centre, where she is helping to answer people's questions about insurance policies and next steps. Hi, Gloria.
Hello, Bob. Thanks for inviting us.
So you're in Clayton Park in Nova Scotia at that temporary shelter at the Canada Games Centre. What are you seeing? How are the displaced residents there doing?
You know, Bob, everybody's stressed. They're trying to deal with the unknown right now. And our hearts go out to everybody who's impacted by this. People are really looking for answers, even though they know that, answers aren't going to be coming very quickly. They have been told that it'll be several days before, they can get back in and assess damages. So there's a lot of unknowns, and I think the biggest thing that we're telling people is to make sure that they call in their claim to their insurance companies. A lot of people, one individual, for example, we know had to leave very quickly. She had a bathing suit on. She had her bathing suit. She grabbed her purse, got her son, and left. So a lot of people don't have information. They may not even have insurance information on them, and they don't know where to go. That's where we can assist. We will get the information, as much information from them as possible, and then we'll reach out to our member companies, insurance companies, to see if we can locate a policy number for them and get things going for them.
So that's interesting, because obviously people have lots of questions. They're not even sure if their home is directly affected by all of this. That there may be no damage at all. The property could be completely destroyed. But call in your claim right away anyway because of the simple fact that you have been displaced?
Correct. So I want just a couple of things. First of all, I want to make it very, very clear, because we've had people come up to us today and say, we've heard on social media that fire is not covered. So I want to make it very clear. All standard homeowners and tenants insurance policies cover damage by fire. So that's really important to know. So there's also included in that is mass evacuation coverage to help with the cost of alternative accommodations and additional living expenses for those who really are not allowed to return home due to a mandatory evacuation order, which is all those affected in this area. So that type of coverage, the additional living expenses, cover those over and above your normal expenses. So, for example, if you are currently staying in a hotel, it's those hotel costs. And if you are having to eat at restaurants, then it would be the difference, the additional costs over your normal groceries type of thing. So it's important to remember those things and making sure that people keep receipts so that they can submit them with their claim.
Okay, so let's go down that road a little bit further then, as far as those mass evacuation costs above and beyond what your usual expenses would be.
Right.
Suppose you do have, well, let's keep it simple, a dog leash at home to help control the dog. If you go out and buy another one, you could assume that would be covered, and on it goes.
Absolutely. So, a lot of people, with the example of that woman with her bathing suit, she needs to go out and buy some clothes. Those and toothbrushes and toothpaste, that type of idea. Again, keep all their receipts.
Is there a ceiling there, though? I wonder how complicated and confusing and muddy that gets.
You know what? As much as sometimes we think that the insurance policy is confusing, and it can be, things like that can easily be described and explained in detail by your insurance adjuster. There is typically a limit on the policy. So if you contact your claims adjuster, they will go over that limit with you. And typically the limits are fairly substantial, that you would have coverage for the time that you are mandated out of your home.
Is there any sense mentioning a ballpark figure there, or does it vary drastically?
It varies drastically depending on the coverage that you've purchased and the amount of insurance.
Okay. But thousands of dollars, I guess, to start,
Absolutely.
Guess. Right, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I've noticed where authorities are urging people actually who are displaced by forest fires to register with a shelter, in part primarily because they can get some immediate help to those folks if they need it. Does that action of registering help in any way with your insurance claim? Is there any crossover there?
There's no correlation there. I think the important thing in registering with a shelter is for them to have your contact information. And so if they need to get in contact with you to provide you with any communication on, the state of your neighborhood, your home, they can do so. In respect to how it relates to insurance, there is no correlation. And we would just recommend that people, if they are going to register with a shelter, to also make sure that they report their claim.
Okay, let's bring Glenn into the conversation here. Glenn, you're with the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction. So your specialty is educating people about the things that they can be doing around their property to help prevent wildfire damage. I'm sure lots of Maritimers are listening to some of the strife people are going through now because of the current fires and thinking, boy, what should I be doing around my own property to try to ward off something like this happening to them? So can you maybe run us through some of the top information you like to provide people?
Sure, Bob. So I guess we can kind of break things up into two pieces. So the first piece would be, what your home is made of, and that's a little bit more difficult to deal with, especially in the short term. But that comes into play when you're doing renovations or buying a home or having a home built or that sort of thing. And I can talk about that in a second. But the big thing, the secondary thing is what is immediately around your home is incredibly important. So, like I say, if you live in the middle of Toronto or the middle of Halifax, nobody cares if you have flammable, vegetation up against your house. Nobody cares if you have a wood pile or a wood shed or a wood fence. But when you're in an at-risk wildfire area, these things are all fuel. And what happens is that embers blow far ahead of the fire front. They land in the communities. It's just like billions of lit cigarettes, basically. And they will seek out and find things that are flammable, cause a chain reaction that will start the home on fire. So those things that are immediately around your home, like 1.5 meters around your home, that are flammable should be taken away. And we're talking about things like wood piles, wood sheds, wood fences, propane tanks, surplus building materials like skids and old lumber and things of that nature. You have to be wary about how you purposely landscape your property. You don't want wood mulch immediately around the property. There are, plants that you can select that aren't flammable, so trying to keep particularly some of those conifer needled plants from around the home. Being careful about what you decide to build your deck out of. And, perhaps instead of a wood deck, you might want to put down cement or some pavers or something of that nature. Keeping your grass short and watered is another one, and maybe even replacing that grass immediately around the house with stone, for example. All these sorts of things really, really matter when you live in a high-risk area. All you need is a few embers that can ignite something and get the house going.
Yeah, and we've heard, just through our coverage, these embers being thrown 100 meters ahead of the fire in some cases. So I guess if you can reduce the chances of that ember landing on something that's flammable, you're going to up your chances of success here. What about the wood that has fallen? Because of Fiona, for example, we've talked before how that's very valuable to wooded areas to leave that wood there because it's nutrients for future growth. Yeah,
Fiona was very fierce. We had things like almost the entire forest around Louisburg knocked down. It's really difficult to get in there and clean that sort of thing out. But that it decays, it dries out, it becomes fuel, even worse fuel. It's really, really problematic, and that's kind of where you see these cascading events, basically where A, which was Fiona, leads to B, which is a wildfire risk. So. Yeah, really, really problematic. Anybody that lives in a wood lot or that sort of thing, it's really advisable if they can thin out that wood lot, keep it sparse. You still might get fire, but you may not get fire that's as violent as what we're seeing now. It's all about trying to get rid of the fuel wherever possible.
Okay, but it's sort of contradictory language, isn't it, or messaging, compared to some other things that we've been told when it comes to the health of the forest, the very thing we want to live in many cases because of its beauty.
Yeah, it's kind of a trade-off, and some people claim that they understand the risk, but we have to ask, do they really understand that risk? And when the fire gets going, they may think twice about whether they really understood what they were getting into when they lived in a heavily forested area.
Well, we're talking about ways to help wildfire-proof our homes, and we're also taking questions about home insurance, particularly when it comes to fire damage. If you have questions or concerns, give us a call. 1-800-565-1940 is the number. Our email is marinoon@cbc.ca. We're also monitoring social media. You can find us by looking for CBC Maritime Noon. We're going to go to the phone lines in just a moment. First, Gareth Hampshire has a look at the latest news headlines. Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. We're just hearing Mayor Mike Savage will be giving an update on the Halifax area wildfire at 2:30, in which he'll be speaking about the response to the fire and supports for those affected. Weather conditions today not helping, and in fact the winds and warm weather could pose a dangerous challenge for firefighters, and that's why there are concerns the fire could spread further this afternoon with 30-kilometer winds expected. The Barrington Lake, Shelburne County wildfire is also out of control. That has grown to 10,000 hectares. We'll be getting an update on that one at 5 p.m. The fire that's forced hundreds of people from their homes and destroyed one house in southwestern New Brunswick is also out of control. The blaze in Beau-Quebec has not grown any, though, as well today, and it is 250 hectares. And on PEI, officials have determined that the cause of forest fire about a month ago, that was near the Crowbush Resort in Lakeside, was accidental, and nearly 3 hectares of land burned in that one. So forest fires dominating the news, and I'll be back with more details at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Gareth. My guests today are Gloria Haydock, who is the Manager of Consumer and Industry Relations in the Atlantic region with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Also joining us today is Glenn McGillivray, who is the Managing Director with the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction. 1-800-565-1940 is the number to call if you have a question either about home insurance or reducing the risk of wildfire affecting your property. Joanne Monroe is on the line from Upper Tantallon in Nova Scotia. Hi, Joanne.
Hello.
Hi. So you are in one of those affected areas currently, or close to it at least. You're still in your home, are you, or are you out of your community?
No, I am in the house.
Okay. So how are you doing?
Good, but we have some problems. They turned off the power to everyone in the area for safety reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So we are on a well. We have no water. We have no power with no water, so we cannot flush the toilet. We cannot do anything like this because the pump. We are retired on a fixed income, and we have to get water somewhere to do the toilets and this and that, and it's challenging. And it's the government they're giving $500 to the people who have evacuated.
Mm-hmm.
But is there something out there that the government would give for those in the home that have no power? We have nothing. What's about the stuff in the fridge and the freezer and all this stuff, eh?
Okay, yeah, that's certainly a question for the provincial government. Just on the insurance side of things, you do have home insurance, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
And are you wondering what in that policy might help, set off some of your costs there, or at least even because you're in that situation where you're not displaced, and maybe we could bring Gloria in here.
Yeah.
You're not displaced, although you are still affected. So, Gloria, what help can you provide to Joanne?
My suggestion, Joanne, is to contact your insurance representative. Every policy is different. That being said, is that there may be coverage afforded to you for this type of loss. So definitely give them a call, and they can explain the coverage to you.
Okay, and Bob, perhaps this would be something to put as a subject for the people who the government that gives the $500. Maybe something for those in the House.
Right. I'll pass that along to our reporters who get the next chance to speak with the Premier, for example, or maybe the minister responsible, and we'll try to get an answer to that question.
Okay. Thanks much.
Thanks, Joanne. Thanks for calling.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to Miramichi now in New Brunswick. Michael Mercero is on the line. Hi, Michael.
Hi there.
Hi. So are you in a wooded area that is raising some concerns for you?
Yes, I'm completely surrounded by forest, and I'm in the city of Miramichi. And in 2018, we had an out-of-control forest fire for 3 days, which really shook me up. Had the wind changed, I would have been in real trouble. So what I've been doing since then is following the practice of Parks Canada and their fuel management program. I've been clearing underbrush on my property and on the perimeter, and I actually hired some guy to thin out the trees. I'm in a part of the city that has no water supply, so there's no hydrants anywhere nearby, and the tanker capacity has been confirmed to be very limited with the city. So what I did was I bought a water pump because I'm right on the river. So it's almost like we have to take a survivalist approach to be able to take care of our properties. But those are some of the measures that people can put in place to protect their properties.
Glenn, what do you think of Michael's approach?
I commend him for being proactive. Unfortunately, that fire put the fear into him. But sometimes that's what happens. But it sounds like he's doing an excellent job. When I spoke earlier, what I'm really talking about is FireSmart. So FireSmart, capital F, capital S. If you look up FireSmart Canada, you'll get a range of excellent material that will give you advice on how to prepare your property so you can reduce the chance of it being affected by a wildfire. And what Michael's doing is exactly what FireSmart recommends, and they get right into the detail of what you can do. So I'd really recommend that people check out FireSmart. It's not too late to go around your property if it's safe to do so, and do some last-minute things just in case you may be impacted over the next few days or so. We don't recommend you do that if you're putting yourself at risk, but if you have some time, there is a last-minute checklist, for example, at FireSmart that allows you to kind of go around your property really quickly and do some things that will reduce the risk for you.
Michael, as you put it, fuel management for your property, that can be expensive work for some people. I know even since Fiona, even just getting some of the wood off their property has run them into the thousands of dollars. Is that something that you've had to try to manage on your own, I guess?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, is disposal of the materials that you cut. I know that Parks Canada, when they do it, they use a chipper, but that's a bit beyond my means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and insurance for the most part is reactive, isn't it, Gloria? So what would you say, from the proactive approach that Michael is taking? There wouldn't be any help provided to him through insurance, would there? Or would he potentially get a lower rate because of the work he's doing on his property?
Not necessarily, but he is actually being proactive. It decreases the chance of a damage from fire. But unfortunately, it's in his best interest, but it doesn't affect his insurance.
Is there any room for discussion on that front at all? I wonder, Gloria. I mean, the way if you take a driver's ed course, you have a lower rate of insurance for your driving your car. If you're taking some proactive action, then you see the benefits in what you pay for insurance.
That's a great
Is it time to kind of get into that discussion?
I think it has merit for sure, especially considering with climate change, and we're seeing obviously an increased frequency of fires. Then perhaps that's something that the industry can look at for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Michael, I really appreciate your call. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to stay in New Brunswick. Robert Jordan is on the line. You're in St. John today, Robert?
Yes, thank you.
But you live in the St. George area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, are you thinking specifically about your personal property in this conversation?
Well, no, I live close to town, and I'm glad that the last person commenting brought up climate change, and I really think that this increased occurrence of fires, not just now happening in New Brunswick, but out west, is it's only going to increase. And this piecemeal approach to cleaning up our backyards, really what it's come down to is a century of improper land use that's built around sprawl. And the further we get out into the woods, the more impact we're going to have. So what we need to do is reverse that course, not place all the onus on the individual to just clean up the surrounding their property.
Glenn, did you want to respond to that at all?
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces to this, and the management of the forest and our centuries-long suppression of fire has caused a great deal of this problem. We've been knocking down fire for so long that the boreal forest and other stands of trees and grasslands are just a tinderbox ready to go off, and we saw that in Banff just a few weeks ago. They haven't had good fire in Banff for a long time. He's absolutely correct, but we do have this thing called private property in Canada, and really it's up to homeowners to protect their immediate property. And, you can do everything possible out into the forest and still get a fire into town. And so it has to be that combination. Everybody has to be involved. It's what we call an all-of-society approach, where everybody has to do their bit, and fire smarting your property is part of that. So he's absolutely right about the first part, but there are actions that need to be taken on the private property level as well, because nobody else is going to do it if you don't.
Mm-hmm. Robert, how are you feeling in New Brunswick? I was looking at the statistics earlier today, and they were saying the 10-year average for fires is 155. Last year there were 135. Already in 2023 there have been 157.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. It's only going to increase, and like he's saying, it's just that it places it all on it's almost voluntary action, and that's why it doesn't seem like we get there quick enough.
Yeah. So, any final thought there, Robert, as far as future steps?
Yeah, I think we just need to improve our land use. And I know that's very sort of nebulous, but there's a lot to it, and I think that the way we develop is causing this increase.
All right. So thoughts around development and how we go forward. Robert, thanks for joining us. We're going to jump to another caller.
Thank you.
All right. Richard Doyle is on the line from Truro. Hi, Richard.
Hi. I was curious. A few years ago, I had a tree, and the storm won, and the tree fell on my house, and the insurance company said it was an act of God. And now I was wondering if these forest fires is not an act of God, where the insurance company's not going to cover the loss of your home.
Okay. Well, Gloria, maybe you can explain that term, act of God, and how it fits into insurance policies.
And that's just I don't want to call it a myth.
She's stumbling. She's stumbling.
No, Richard.
No.
Let her respond first. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gloria.
I wouldn't. It's a myth. It's act of God. Fire can be an act of God, but it's covered. Wind can be an act of God, but on typical insurance policies, that's covered. So, it's unfortunately with the environment changing. We're going to see more and more of these, and these are natural catastrophes that impact all of us and impact insurance.
Do you see our rates going up, Gloria?
As far as rates going up, one incident, one storm, really doesn't automatically impact premiums. As much as prior claims can impact premiums, the industry is really well capitalized for these type of events. Now, there are external factors that are putting pressure on premiums, like inflation, interest rates, and of course, right now we've got supply chain disruptions and labor shortages. But the industry is working hard to try and maintain those premiums as much as possible with these factors coming in.
Yeah, I mean, Fiona is still fresh in the minds of so many people, and so many people were affected by that. You kind of wonder where the ceiling is before those rate increases start to happen as a result.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
So Bob, I've been around the insurance industry for over 30 years. You will not find an act of God clause in any policy anywhere. It is absolutely a falsehood. It's we often see it written about in media, and it's just not there. And I don't know how this ever came to be a thing, but it's just a false thing. Last year, Canadian insurance companies paid out over $3.1 billion in severe weather losses. We pay for hail, we pay for wind, we pay for wildfire, we pay for a whole bunch of things. And so I'm really not sure where this act of God thing ever got a gravity, but it'd be nice if it were to stop.
Okay, there you go, Richard. You got your response there. We're going to scoot along to Merriam Cook now in New Brunswick. Carson Lee is on the line. Hi, Carson.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Good. So are you in a wooded area where you are?
Well, before I relocated to New Brunswick from Ontario, one of the things that I invested in, one of your callers spoke to that I invested in a 2-inch trash pump on a couple of 100 feet of hose and a fire spigot end at the end of that. What I want to say is there are a lot of people who live and have active streams and brooks running near their property. Now, I am not advocating for people to go out there and ban to be a firefighter, and I believe for the insurance companies to say that would be a good asset for one to have and hold themselves to that. They would probably put themselves at liability for one lost life. So that's the gray area there. But that was exactly my thought. I invested in a 2-inch trash pump. As a matter of fact, I bought 100 feet of hose. And those IBC thoughts, I've invested in 6 of them, and I have them on my property right now. The other thing I did is that I keep a 4-foot buffer right around my property. Always keep it clear of any debris and brush and keep it well manicured. And that's my tidbit for today.
Okay, thanks for the comments, Carson. Glenn, 4-foot buffer, is just to go back to your earlier comments, is that what you'd like to see as far as potentially flammable things around your property?
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, that space immediately around the property is the most problematic, and it's the one that, if that's the only thing you can do, address that flammable material rate immediately around the property of the house.
And one of the images that are circling on social media today is a gentleman. He has a tie on, for heaven's sakes, but he's trying to grapple with his little garden hose at the back of his house while flames are burning in the backyard. But I wonder, Carson talks about a 2-inch fast pump. Glenn, I mean, would you advise that? Because that's obviously an added investment, but maybe you would help in some situations?
Yeah, anytime that it just may encourage people to stay back and put themselves in the harm's way, we get a little skittish about giving that kind of advice. If there's things that you can do safely, like basically douse the property, douse the lawn, so that those embers don't grab hold, that's not a bad thing. In a lot of places, the fire department will take control of those things and run them themselves so that the water supply is not being pressured and that sort of thing. We're just very leery about encouraging people to kind of stay back and put themselves in harm's way, though. Yeah,
and do you have actually the right to the water that's in those streams and brooks as well, even if you wanted to act in a proactive way, Gloria? It sounds, I hear you saying sort of almost, I can see you almost nodding in agreement to what Glenn is saying.
Exactly. You know what? Your house can be replaced. You cannot.
Yeah.
Let the firefighting professionals do that.
Okay, but make sure you have those buffers around your property. That is a good
Absolutely.
start. Carson, thanks for the call. We're going to head to Stewiacke now in Nova Scotia. Brian Verboom is on the line. Brian, how are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. Do you have any insurance questions?
Yeah, some questions and comments. We actually lost our house to a fire in 2018.
Okay, you're just breaking up a little bit, Brian, so I'm hoping that clears up as we go along here. Go ahead with your thoughts. Nope. Sounds like we may have lost you, Brian. We're going to see if we can get you back in the 10 minutes that we have because we'd like to get you included here. But in the meantime, we're going to head off to the Truro area. Dorian Freeve on the line. Hi, Dorian.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, good. So what are your thoughts on today's discussion?
Well, my question is, I have no choice but to have a deck because I'm on the side of a hill. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if there's some fireproof product available that I could cover it with.
Okay.
It's an open deck, you know.
Glenn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first of all, if you don't want to replace the whole thing completely, there are fireproof paints and treatments that you can put on the deck. There is some new composite material that looks like wood, but it's actually a form of plastic or something like that. Little expensive. Looks really good, but it won't burn like wood.
You can buy that in a building supply store?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all available in many, many different colors, and it's quite an interesting product. The other thing, though, in the time being right now, just make sure that there's no collection of leaf litter and other like debris underneath that deck that can ignite. Just try to keep it clear as possible. It's, it usually takes something else to ignite a deck. A deck doesn't often ignite just by itself. It's usually, a bunch of leaves will cause the deck to catch fire, which will cause the house to catch fire. So if you can keep those things away, like collections of leaf litter, pine needles, even lawn furniture, if there is some risk of fire, get anything that you think can start, get that away from the deck, but keep it maintained.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, Dorian, thanks for the call.
Have a good day.
You too. We're going to stay in Nova Scotia and head to the Annapolis Valley. Ian Curry is on the line. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, what are your thoughts on today's discussion?
Well, I just had a discussion with my insurance broker this morning about, issues of, forest fires and keeping the house protected. And I've been, over the years, putting metal roofing on every building on my property. Mm-hmm. And I can't believe that, in this day and age, with so many houses in forested areas, that insurance companies allow us to have asphalt shingles, plastic gutters, vinyl siding. All of these things are petroleum products that are really designed to burn and burn hot. And that's my question with the insurance is, if someone wants to build a house in a forested area, then maybe the insurance company should advise them on what to sheathe the house with and what to roof the house with.
Okay.
That's my question.
All right, Gloria, is the thinking changing around those things?
Well, I would say it's really built on the building code. There's that reliance in regards to insurance aspects of it. So I would say the building code would have to be revisited.
Well, yeah, if I can chime in here, this is exactly what we do at ICLR, and we have the advice on what, how to build a home that's more fire resilient. We follow the National Research Council's Wildland Urban Interface Fire Guide, which is easily available online. So a couple of thoughts here. First of all, it's a complete falsehood that you need a metal or should have a metal roof. They're great. Don't get me wrong. But as long as your roof cover is rated Class A, which could include asphalt shingles, but it could include other things as well. But a Class A roof is the most fire resilient roof you're going to get. And just embers landing on an asphalt roof isn't going to really ignite it. What really ignites is debris in the downspouts and the eaves troughs, like forest litter, leaves, pine needles, and that sort of thing. And that usually ignites, and then that gets the building going. So metal roofs are fine. You're going to spend about 5 or 6 times more than an asphalt roof for one, but it's probably going to be the last roof you ever need to buy. But it's okay to put an asphalt shingle roof on as long as it's a Class A rated roof. And what we don't like to see is wood shake shingle roofs, especially untreated roof shakes. We don't like those at all. But there are other options as well, like slate and things like that. They get a little costly. But the caller's absolutely correct about the vinyl siding. If you live in a wildfire risk zone, vinyl siding is pretty absurd product to use. It melts and leaves the home, exposes the home to fire. We really recommend something like a fiberboard, cement fiberboard siding, like a hardy board type of product. Mm-hmm. Bricks aren't really realistic in a lot of the country because there's not a lot of clay, and so you'd have to import the bricks. It gets costly. We see a lot of bricks in southern Ontario because of all the clay, but in other places in Canada we see a lot of siding, including vinyl, and really not a great product at all in a high-risk fire zone. So think about things like stucco as well, and things
exactly.
that don't ignite. Yeah, really, really key. And ventilation. If you have an attic vent, we want to see the grating on that or the screen on that be very dense so that embers can't get into the attic or into the foundation. They're, double to triple pane glass windows, tempered windows also can help keep fire out. So there are things that we can do. We know exactly how to build homes for this. We just have to get on with it.
Yeah, okay. So, I hear the word recommendation or recommended. Ian, would you like to see some of those requirements actually built into the building code?
Most definitely, because the building code, as far as I can tell, is run by the industry, and then the local county authorities just sort of roll over and do whatever industry says is available. And that's how vinyl siding got on. I mean, I wouldn't allow it on my property, but then I don't like hydrocarbons, period. But I just think that, that me as a taxpayer, I am held responsible if somebody's allowed to build a house, whether it's in the middle of the forest or on a flood zone, and the county gives them a permit. That means the county's liable, or the public are liable for that loss, because everybody wants to build houses here in Nova Scotia, and yet they're not using common sense as to, well, don't build in the middle of a pine forest unless you're going to build out of concrete and metal, because with the fires and with the way things are going today, you never know when there's a fire going to pop up in your backyard.
Yeah. Okay, Ian, you've given us something to ponder. Thank you very much.
You. Take care.
That's Ian Curry in the Annapolis Valley in Nova Scotia, and that is just about all the time we have. So thank you to everybody who got in touch, and I'd like to thank our guests as well. Gloria Haydock is the Manager of Consumer and Industry Relations in the Atlantic region with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Gloria, thanks very much for joining us.
Well, thanks again for having us.
And Glenn McGillivray is the Managing Director with the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction. Glenn, thanks for your time as well.
Thanks so much, Bob.
And if you're listening and you want to go back and listen to part of the program, you can do that.